Ah, yes, there's Dean over there, grazing on his bale of hay. And there's Nora, munching on some oats. And there's Karishma in the field, sleeping? You know, I have to say, Survivor is much simpler this way. No worries, a free ride. You just kick back, you relax, tend to your goat farm, ensuring everyone's comfortable and well fed. This is the life, let me tell you. Wait a minute. What's Dean doing? Why is Nora dancing? And that's not... Guys, where did Karishma go? Oh no. There's too many of them. The barn's too big. They're mobilizing against us. Quick, run! Get out of here while you still stand a chance to reach fire making. Take the idol with you. You're our last hope at getting a deserving winner.
Attention! Goat number 1, Karishma reporting for duty. Attention! Goat number 2, Nora reporting for duty. And then they all end up assembling the Goat army to knock out one of these big threats. Dean, Elizabeth, Tommy. It cannot happen.
Sheeple and goat people, internet, my name is Peridiam, and let's talk about goats. You know, that cute little thing that Sandra wanted to slaughter in Game Changers, bathe in its blood. For many of you, this topic may be old hat. After all, I have made 2 other videos discussing this very subject before. That said, this video will be more introductory than the previous 2, diving into the meaning and the history of the term goat as it's used in the context of Survivor. In fact, dare I say, I recommend watching my classification of goats video as a follow-up to this one, as well as my ranking of the top 5 greatest goats in Survivor. Basically, I probably should have made this video before those 2, but here we are. What is a goat in Survivor? Well, first off, I can tell you exactly what it's not. It's not an acronym for the greatest of all time. Most commonly used in sports, the acronym capital letter GOAT represents the best players in any given competition. In the context of Survivor, you might even say that Sandra is the GOAT. Whoa, that's deep. The greatest ever because of her impressive resume. And while that's all well and good and completely makes sense, that's not the GOAT we're talking about in this video, or pretty much ever in Survivor. When you hear the word GOAT used in the context of Survivor, it's almost always referring to the word goat, as in the animal, not the acronym, and it has a completely different meaning.
Y'all have goats? Y'all have goats?
No, you
We didn't find any goats. You have goats? There's goats everywhere in here. I can get probably here, probably 20 yards from them.
A GOAT, when applied to Survivor, refers to a player who won't win the game if they reach the final tribal council and they are sitting in front of the jury pleading their case for why they should win the $1 million. They are oftentimes considered an easy beat for other players because the other players recognize that this one player just won't win for whatever reason. Maybe it's because they've said or done a lot of controversial things. Maybe it's because they haven't played the game very hard and they don't have much of a case to pitch. Most often, the reason boils down to either the jury just doesn't like them as a person or respect them as a player. At least not as much as the other 1 or 2 finalists that are sitting next to them on night 39. That's something to remember about some goats. They can be likable, decent, well-meaning human beings who played a pretty good game all things considered, but compared to their competition around them, they just didn't play well enough. It's also important to note that a GOAT is not a player who just loses in a final 2 or a final 3. Just because someone loses a jury vote does not make them a GOAT. A GOAT is a player who is all but guaranteed to never win in a final 2 or a final 3. No matter what combination of endgame players they are matched up with at the final tribal council, they won't win. Or at least that's my interpretation, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Now, because Survivor is so heavily edited and absolutely strung together to provide us a compelling narrative, it's not always easy to tell who is and who isn't a GOAT. Likewise, we only live in one timeline, I think, and thus we only ever get one combination of finalists each season. Can we say for certain that a player cut at the final 4 or 5 or 6 doesn't win if given the chance to sit in front of the jury? What about a runner-up or a 3rd place finalist if the person that beats them isn't in the final 3 with them to beat them? How far back in a season and how many different permutations of a final 2 or 3 need to exist before we can feel comfortable with a player winning? Basically what I'm trying to say is this is very ambiguous and open for speculation, partially why I now have 3 videos on it.
Yeah, but don't get too attached because this is going to be our meal.
Yeah.
The baby?
Sandra don't care about killing these goats. In her mind, it's just food.
I don't see anything wrong with killing and eating a goat. That's what they're here for human consumption.
For example, did you know that Brandon Hantz was the frontrunner to win Survivor South Pacific? Outside of Ozzy reaching the end, if it wasn't Ozzy who won, it probably would have been Brandon. We know that because of a lot of post-season interviews that shine a light on the intricacies of the dynamics between the players that we just did not get to see in the episode. And that's just one example. That said, because it can be difficult to pin down if a player is actually a GOAT or not, it does mean there's more debate and discussion to be had. Ultimately, if you have ever heard the word GOAT used or wondered what a GOAT was in the context of Survivor, that's what it is. A player who most likely won't win and will probably get destroyed by Sandra. So when you're cast on a future season of the show and you begin to hear murmurs of a GOAT army on the rise, you will know exactly what that means and just how terrifying it would be.
And the white thing. Good. Not only does it sound good, you do the face. Eric, stop hitting on the goats. There are a couple.
So, okay, Peridiam. I guess I get what a goat is now, I think. But why is it called a goat? Why not, like, a sheep? Why even an animal at all? Ah, you want the origin story of the goat. Here we go. The reason we call these players goats goes way back to the year 2001, after Survivor the Australian Outback had finished airing. Now, this was a time before social media existed, before Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Discord, or almost anything else that's commonplace today. One of the most popular places to discuss Survivor online was a website aptly named Survivor Sucks, a bit tongue-in-cheek given it was full of rabid superfans, and it's actually still alive today. On that message board, a user by the name of Sunsod, I think that's how you say it, created a post discussing a theory they had concocted describing the makeup of the Final Four in Survivor. Now, at this point when this theory had been created, there had only been 2 seasons of the show, so it was a little less resolute than I think many theories you might see today. There just wasn't as much data to rely on back then, but still, Sunsod put together a theory that managed to stick around and even greatly influence the Survivor culture to this day, literally to the week of this video existing. Sunsod noted how in any given Final Four in a season of Survivor, there are 4 archetypes of players that exist: the fox, the bear, the bunny, and of course, the goat. The fox was the sly, cunning, manipulative strategist who was priming themselves to win. They were the person to beat. The bear was the loyal opposition to the fox. There was the bunny, a player who didn't always fit into the Final Four. They were oftentimes there because the fox allowed them to be, because they might be an easy player to eliminate at that point. It's noted that generally the bunny is a pleasant personality, though if Monty Python is anything to go by, don't underestimate them. And then finally, we have the goat. The goat was defined as a person who, well, as I said earlier, can't win. They are an easy beat by the fox or the bear.
I don't think Keith could have made it this far on his own accord. You know, we kind of pulled Keith along. We needed a third as part of an alliance to have a majority vote. And we've kept Keith around for that reason.
I don't think Keith earned the right to sit in the position of one of the final 2 in this game. I don't think he played the game in a fashion or well enough to deserve that spot.
Oftentimes they are brought along, guaranteed out of loyalty, built upon a 2nd or 3rd place finish. Back when there was a final 2, this theory surmised that the endgame would be a battle between the fox and the bear to take the goat to the final tribal, whereupon the fox or bear would beat them. Of course, with 20 years of Survivor to now draw upon, that's definitely not what I would call the endgame of many seasons, but the theory does have its merits. Despite the fox, bear, and bunny not sticking in the grander scheme of things, the goat did, largely because I think it's a very easy term to pin down and understand, and when applied to the game, it's a very common and popular strategy. To find a player who you think you can beat and then work with them to reach the end, whereupon, well, you beat them. You don't necessarily need to find a GOAT or a player that can't win at all, but hey, if you can find that, don't ever let it go. And in case you're curious, when was the first time the concept of the GOAT was ever brought up in the show? To the best of my knowledge, the first muttering was from Ethan on Survivor All-Stars.
My tribe sees me as a powerhouse, as, you know, someone can help them in challenges, and I failed. And it feels horrible to fail. You know, you're either the hero or you're the GOAT. And today I was the GOAT.
There is a fantastic article by Martin Holmes on the site Inside Survivor that I will link below in the description. It goes into even greater detail than just this video about the origin of the GOAT, referencing ancient Greece and the Bible and so much more. It's very much worth a read if you want an even deeper dive into this subject. And before I end this video, I do want to make a few more observations before this term begins to proliferate and get flanderized. It's very possible to have a season of Survivor without any discernible GOATs, or any GOATs at all. Like a rock, paper, scissors final 3 that leads into a final 2. If you watch Big Brother Canada, a great example would be season 3. Player A beats player B in a final 2, but player B beats player C, but then player C beats player A. This absolutely can play out on Survivor too, although I think with final 3s, it's a little easier to have at least one player who probably has a lot of trouble finding a winning combination. I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't be so quick to label someone as a GOAT just because you think that they might not be playing very well. A large majority of players who play Survivor and Big Brother aren't GOATs, or will never be able to be clearly defined as one anyway. And for the record, I don't consider the term GOAT to be an insult so much as a label to break down the game at hand. But I could understand not being a fan of it when you are a player.
Get Trish. Yeah. Take out one of his options for a GOAT.
This morning, I overheard Cass saying I was a GOAT and that maybe they should vote me out, which really infuriated me because I've been sitting here trying to be nice to Cass this whole time, which has really been exhausting for me.
If I were to keep Philip around, he's terrible in challenges, and he's a GOAT, perfect person to take to the end.
Maybe I am making $1 million wrong mistake, but I would rather lose to Mama C than be the guy that just took 2 GOATs to the end and won.
Either way, that is going to be the history and the meaning and the origin story of the GOAT in Survivor. So please, if you ever see someone unsure of what the term is, show them this video. And let me know down below what you think about the terminology of the GOAT. Would you be a ranking member in the GOAT army? Where do I enlist? Regardless, my name is still Peridiam, saying thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this quick walk through history over the past 20 years. Don't forget to feed your GOAT on your way out, and I will see you in the next one once I fly to Fiji and exterminate every fox, bear, bunny, and creepy spider with a yellow abdomen, just to be safe, in the nearest vicinity. They have bears, right?
Being a GOAT rancher, you're with a lot of goats. You don't need a lot of people. My husband thinks I'm going to be the first person voted off because he thinks I talk a lot.
Wendy Jo,
Yes.
your husband, turns out, was right.
He said if I sing and I dance and I talk and I don't go under the radar, I'll be voted off. And so I didn't do any of those things, and I was voted off.
I'm not really sure what you just said, but you are one of a kind.
The winner gets these 2 GOATs. Then in the morning, we'll go to a small African village where you are going to barter these GOATs for whatever you can get. Creature comforts, food, souvenirs, whatever you deem important. And then the merchant who you trade with will be able to increase his herd of goats, which increases his wealth.